taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning, and you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind, come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind, come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, it's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello, don't mind me. I am posting on the Twitter. And we have a very special guest tonight, someone I haven't had in quite some time, who I missed so much. So thank you so much, Mr. Cepeda. Can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Well, it's great to be back on. I missed you all as well. Thank you so much for bringing me back on. Yeah, so I'm a journalist. I'm a writer. I've written for a bunch of different places right now. Most of my work is at Substack, a free Substack that we created called Deconstructing Consent. It's at eliascepeda.substack.com. We write about, I'd like to think we write about a bunch of related things. It seems to write about intersections of politics and culture, specifically around issues of race and gender and sexuality and ethnicity.
Absolutely. And you do a great job at it, which is why the first time I read one of your articles, I was like, yeah, I'm going to actually DM this guy and have him come on my show. And then I just kind of like adopted you and stuck you in my pocket. And I'm like, okay, now let's do an article together. Now let's do a show together. And you kind of had no control over it. Actually, Andrew, the same thing kind of happened with you. I just took a liking to you, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I want an Andrew. Okay, now we're doing a show together.
Well, Andrew and I are both lucky. always great working with you and talking with y'all.
Andrew, what is up with you?
Yeah, so I currently have the Rona, unfortunately. Again for the second time. So if I seem a little low energy tonight, that doesn't mean that I'm disinterested. It just means that, I have COVID. But yeah, but other than that, doing well, and excited for tonight. Yeah.
Well, first we want to talk about the new there we go. This new article, because I am in Pennsylvania and I'm getting really freaking sick of people praising John Fetterman, because I live in Pennsylvania. I've met him many times. I've personally interviewed him. I have never and will never vote for him. So it's very frustrating to me to see people like, oh my God, Pennsylvania is going to get a progressive and stuff. No. Point blank, no. So, Andrew, why don't you start off? First let's go to the tweet by Hillary. Is that what's up now?
No, but I can I can put that up. One second.
Because so Hillary was giving him props. So, First of all, I didn't know people still use the word progressive until this week when they were, referring to Fetterman as progressive. I'm like, I thought we buried that word like years ago. But yeah, here's Queen Hillary praising him. So if you like the same person she's praising, that's a problem, a big problem.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, she says, congratulations to the newest Democratic nominee to represent Pennsylvania in the Senate. I spoke to John and his wife about their fight for working families and their partnership on my podcast last year. Listen here. Whew, that's a podcast I'm not listening to. Jeez.
and like, he's been our lieutenant governor for 2 years. It's not that he's a candidate and this is like new, and he's been a rep for 2 years. So we know, like, we have a very good idea of what he stands for and, what he will and will not do. So let's get to this article because I was so freaking excited when I saw this. Well, first, do you want to tell us why you wrote it?
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks. And it's a pleasure to get to talk about it. I was a bit frustrated, like you, and I would say I'm much later to that particular frustration than you. You're actually in Pennsylvania. You've actually interacted with him. You've thought about Fetterman and evaluated him probably more in depth than I had, and certainly we're doing it probably sooner than I was. But as I saw the returns come in, maybe it's just me being a spoil sport or a contrarian, but I saw not among just liberals or Democrats, but among good folks, some we know, some we just admire from afar in the media sphere, or just people out there tweeting. They were very excited that it looked like Fetterman was going to get the nomination from the Democratic Party and the Senate race out of Pennsylvania. And I could understand that in a sense. He beat out Connor Lamb, and Connor Lamb is an atrocious reactionary. And so I get that first inclination. However, it did bother me that people were just kind of uncritically celebrating. And a part of that has to do with my development. I've increasingly disinterested in electoralism and its potential to, on its own, affect change. And I think it operates as kind of a Trojan horse, or as a release valve for us to make us feel like we're doing something. But secondarily, I wanted to look at one particular issue that I thought that really bothered me. And it's okay to not like Connor Lamb, and it's okay, in my view, to be excited that he loses, and it's okay to even make a calculus and say, I'm going to vote for John Fetterman because I like things he's said about unions or about weed or about gay people being people, or I like that he wears hoodies and stuff like that. I mean, all that is fine if you think that's the best you can do in an election and that's a part of your overall strategy to try to improve the world. I'm not going to take that away. We can disagree about tactics. It's not a problem. But I was seeing no one talk about the fact that John Fetterman has pretty much materially and effectively to Palestinians the exact same stance on Israeli apartheid and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people and the occupation, the legal and immoral, of their land. He has the exact same stance as Connor Lamb and as anyone that he could possibly face in the Republican field in the general election. And that just was not being talked about. And I think that really bothered me a lot. It's okay to say, hey, make an argument for someone, but to completely occlude someone's support for what even the top Israeli a human rights organization calls an apartheid regime, what the top international human rights organizations that are very conservative by and large, they're not radical places like Amnesty International and stuff, they call it an apartheid regime that is furthermore fueled and funded by us and our tax dollars. Right. To completely ignore that I think to call him a progressive and laud it, that just really, really bothered me. And I suspected that a lot of people didn't know that John Fetterman has taken the same stance that just about every mainstream other mainstream politician has, which is that Israel and the United States have a quote unquote special relationship, and he basically pledges fealty to them and suggests that people asking for Palestinian liberation are kind of extremists and kooky. I suspect a lot of people didn't know that. And from what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people, in fact, did not know that. And I think that's a failure of the more popular, widely viewed so-called progressive or so-called leftist media outlets. They were too busy celebrating the John Fetterman's personal success, his latest career accomplishment, and really ignoring something that I think should be disqualifying. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at too. I spent too much of my life not thinking enough about the world's largest remaining apartheid regime that we support, and I'm about done with that. I'm about done with ignoring the fact that all our politicians support just a brutal occupation of Palestinian people.
Yeah, absolutely. And those of us in Pennsylvania, we also know that in addition to his absolutely repulsive statements of Palestinians and Israel, we also know that a few years back he chased an unarmed black man with a gun in his truck. So now you're not going to hear about that. You're not going to hear, I'm putting these things, in comments of people who are praising him, and people are like, well, you don't know the situation. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, have you heard of George Floyd? Have you seen everything that's happened the past year and a half at least? And you don't understand that these things can lead to murder? So, and I think she's probably in the comments. Jenna Whoopty. Yeah, there she goes.
Yeah.
She, he was her mayor when he was mayor of Braddock. He was her mayor. She knew him personally. Small town. And she knows stories about how he was firsthand. She's the one that kind of started waking me up to this stuff. And yes, he's incredibly racist, xenophobic. He also campaigned like crazy for Hillary. One of the things that really pisses me off is when people are like, well, he endorsed Bernie when no one else would. Okay, so here's the thing. When I was at Bernie rallies and working them, like volunteering, he would show up. Fetterman would show up, pass out flyers, take pictures with people, and leave. He would not even enter the stadium to see him talk.
Was this his first campaign or second?
First.
First. Okay.
So he used us. And people who say he supports Medicare for all, no, he fucking doesn't. I can tell you that for a fact. He does not. He praises Obamacare all the time. So, and then he talks about a living wage. Well, what has he done in Pennsylvania? He talks to our governor, since he's lieutenant governor, about how maybe we can raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $12 eventually. Not now, but $12 eventually. And this is a living wage to him. So there's so many problems. But are you still with us?
Still with us, Elias?
Yeah. Do you want to pull up anything from the actual article, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm going to add that to the stream now. So here is the Substack.
And subscribe if you haven't. I have a Substack as well that you could subscribe to.
Yeah. You're back.
Oh, was I gone for there? You all couldn't see me or hear me?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
just went blank.
We're pulling up the article, so it's okay.
What
Yeah.
happened? But I like what you said. I don't. I like that. You know that you pointed out, Joy. I mean, I tried to write about it in the piece, but I didn't say it now. That like he's racist and xenophobic. It is racist and xenophobic to support a racist apartheid regime. We can make a lot of excuses for politicians that we like or find charming or whatever, but this is not a game to the people of Palestine. This is not a game to the 2 million Gazans that are living in what is described by human rights groups as an open air prison. We can. It's a very big privilege for us as Americans to only think about things like legalization of marijuana or free college education or or health care, and then only demand that from politicians while they go ahead and subjugate the rest of the world, or tacitly allow the American empire to subjugate the rest of the world. Like I really think that's a very chauvinistic type of nationalistic leftism that should be rejected. We need internationalism, and historically Americans that have sought liberation, like Black Americans in the civil rights movement, they really needed the international community, and the international community stuck up for them to shame the American government, and we need to be there for the rest of the world as well. I think it's a really flimsy leftism that only thinks about the social safety net that we should certainly have improved here for ourselves. But we need to think about other people. We need to think about what's done in the rest of the world, especially because we are the world's empire. We are the world's hegemonic power, and any money that we have left over here in the richest civilization in human history comes from our empire. So the least we can do as we take that money that we've gotten, ill-gotten gains, is to still think about the rest of the world. And if we don't, and if we support regimes that treat people as subhuman and like things like movements like modern Zionism, which treat Palestinians as a different species, then we are being racist. And no matter what aesthetic we hold, and no matter what domestic policies that are good we might support, we are being racist. And John Fetterman is racist if he wants to uncritically support the state of Israel and subjugating Palestinians.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on a good point. I think when it comes to people running, like I've seen Pennsylvanians try to, attempt to rationalize, his statements and support for Israel and such. And they're saying, well, he's going to be representing Pennsylvania. No, actually, we're all his constituents, me as a Pennsylvanian, and you guys as well, because his votes affect every fucking person. So no, he may not vote on something having to do with Palestine as far as Pennsylvania, but if he gets elected, he's going to be voting on behalf of us.
Right.
And I don't want him fucking voting against people in Gaza and Palestine. Yes, that is relative.
Congress people make foreign policy decisions every day, without us even knowing. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Elias, it kind of reminds me, if you mind, I want to just ask a follow-up. So it's one book I've been meaning to read a lot by Mark Lamont Hill, Except for Palestine. And I haven't read the book yet, but the concept is where he talks about how progressives are willing to talk about any issues, but they always avoid Israel and their human rights abuses, right? And this whole concept that you're doing reminds me of that. So why do you think Israel is always something that the majority of progressive left, whatever you want to call them, refuse to touch? Why do you think that is like the one issue where they don't go near? Whereas like Medicare for all, they'll give talking points for it, right? But Israel.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's definitely it's a great book. Yeah, I mean, and that's a really excellent question. I think starting more broadly, I do think all Americans, we're well trained, well educated, well indoctrinated to not reflect critically on the world. Because if we did, we would see that we have been for some centuries now. In fact, really, at the beginning of of the United States, or what became the United States, beginning the founding of that, we've been the villains 100% of the time, all the time. When we came here, the Europeans, we exterminated millions and millions of indigenous people, and then we enslaved millions and millions of people from Africa, and on that basis, we created capital that helped develop the modern economic system and world order. It became capitalism. If we ever think about that, if we ever think about our influence on the rest of the world historically and currently, if we think about all the millions and millions of people that America is responsible for murdering all the time, it would show us how the sausage is made, so to speak, right? And people might not like that, and so we're really well trained not to think about that. And as a result, everybody that's a mainstream politician, and anyone who is in Congress is a mainstream politician. I don't care who they are. I don't care how much I like them. I happen to like so much about Senator Sanders, and to what effect I could try to support him when he ran for president twice. That doesn't change the fact that he has the blood of 500,000 Iraqi, mostly women and children, in his hands for supporting just reprehensible and illegal sanctions on them. This is before the vote that he's so happy that he voted against the Iraq war. Well, he had a war in Iraq in the 90s when he was in Congress that he signed up for, and he's it doesn't change the fact that I like him, doesn't change the fact that he co-signed was in favor of illegal drone assassinations. Like, this is so widespread, and I think it's because our empire, like, being seen for what it is a crucial component and precondition for it existing. So we're inundated by ideological apparatuses since birth. In our schools teach history in a certain way that really includes American empire and its brutality, or sanitizes it. Our family conversations do the same, and even up to and through higher education. The most successful historians, the ones who write the biographies that become bestsellers about American leaders, they have really sanitized characterizations or views or retellings or narratives of these people and of these stories. And I think it helps us uphold our privilege to the extent that we're ever self-reflective. We like that we have been for a little bit on the top of the pile, and that the only way you can really be free from the perils of American imperialism, people think, is to be within its borders. So we like that. So we don't want to think too much about that privilege. If we examine that privilege, we might give it up. So I think that extends to a lot of issues. I don't think people are thinking about all the governments we've overthrown in South America. I don't think they're thinking about the American forces and money used to rape nuns in Central America, and I don't think they're reflective in thinking about us paying terror groups and then getting drugs and giving it to Black Americans here. I don't think we think about any of this stuff very much ever, and I think it's a necessary precondition for this empire continuing, and we're indoctrinated. So I think it's a big part of it. Now Israel in particular. Sorry, there's a siren here. Israel falls into that broadly. If there's particular reasons why we don't think about that, oh boy, there's something going on here. The siren's nearby. I don't know how much you can hear that. Sorry about that. But Israel also has, the state of Israel was helped out pretty early on by the British, but then by the United States. Once they started showing that they were kind of this is my opinion, they were willing to be a mini United States, like a version of us in an important region. And when I say a mini United States, I mean like another European white settler colonial state, and they were willing to be brutal to enforce that. We started giving them our support, and Israel has a lot of influence in our politics. We have local legislation that is basically drafted up by lobby groups tied to the state of Israel that basically require loyalty oaths. If you get any government funding, you have to promise to never exercise your First Amendment rights as an American to protest or speak out against or boycott Israel. They have a lot of influence, and I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think the United States wanted to support Israel once Israel showed it was willing to be a white supremacist European settler colonial state and brutalize its indigenous people. We said, hey, if we help them, we can have a foothold in this region that we like to meddle in already. We already like to overthrow governments like in Iran. We already like to, balkanize or help balkanize, Iraq, what became Iraq and things of that nature. So there's particular interest groups here, just like any other interest groups that just have a big foothold here. And I think a lot of people don't feel comfortable, even if they know better, they don't feel comfortable coming up with the verbiage or being able to express themselves in a way where they can avoid charges of anti-Semitism. Exactly. So they avoid the issue altogether, especially because it's an issue that historically has not really registered on most Americans' radar. Although survey data shows that's changing, and it's also changing among a lot of my, people my age and younger, my Jewish American brothers and sisters, who I grew up with. I happen to grow up with a lot of them because I went to schools that were predominantly ethnically Jewish and stuff. A lot of them, their opinions on the state of Israel are different and changing. Their opinions on Palestinian liberation are changing. So anyway, I think it's been a difficult thing for politicians who are usually, as a rule, craven and cynical and just want to advance themselves. They want to stay away from things that might take a lot of nuance to discuss, and they want to stay away from things that would work against narratives that we've been indoctrinated since we were young. And a lot of these groups, like the Anti-Defamation League, have really at the state and have really close ties to the state of Israel, and they've weaponized things like charges of anti-Semitism, which is sad because anti-Semitism is a real scourge on the earth. And has been for a long time, and they kind of callously, some folks callously kind of weaponize that to get people to not think about the way that Palestinians are being subjugated by the state of Israel. And and this is a region. Palestine is a place where, for thousands of years, Christians, Muslims, Jewish, and secular people lived in peace. But when the modern Zionist movement successfully got a lot of European Jewish people to move there, that's how it became a colonial, European colonial state. And it's really sad, but I just think that it operates within the larger paradigm of us being unreflective about American empire, because we're trained to think of ourselves as the good people and the actual purveyors of freedom. And I think Israel in particular is a place where folks feel threatened that they're gonna be charged with being anti-Semitic if they criticize the state, just like they're afraid they're going to be called un-American if they criticize the United States. And I think the United States has such close ties with Israel, with weapons exchange and purchasing, with us covering up for them being a nuclear power. That to criticize Israel is basically to criticize the United States. It's a huge direct line. We are directly culpable for every, child that is blinded by a sniper, a Palestinian child is blinded by a sniper, every Gazan that starves to death because of Israeli strictures around food and water. That's directly American. It's not even a tangential relationship. It's our weapons. It's our oftentimes, although Israel is a big weapons exporter themselves, it's really, really a directly American thing. So if we criticize Israel, you're going to be called anti-Semitic and you're going to be called anti-American very fast.
Yeah, I when people talk about, things like that, I always think about Bernie, because Bibi Netanyahu, who has met with everyone, even before they were president, even Kamala, Queen Hillary, everyone's taken money from him and, proudly poses with him and shakes his hand. Well, he has to meet with Bernie, and Bernie said no. And that put him on the biggest shit list when it came to Netanyahu and his people. And then, so Bernie, instead of meeting with him, he actually gave a pro-Palestine talk at a college. So not only did he say no, he actually supported Palestine in the process. Then we actually had Palestinians for Bernie, and what they lived in Palestine, and they would freaking phone bank for us. Like, I'm not even kidding you, because he was like the only person who ever stood up for Palestinians. And talking about being called anti-Semitic, Bernie literally, aside from his mother, his father, and his brother, all of his relatives have been wiped out directly by the Holocaust in Poland. All of them. And he was being called anti-Semitic. The man is Jewish and lost his family in the Holocaust. And you are calling him anti-Semitic because he doesn't bow down to Israel. That is disgusting.
Yeah.
So you see, like, the epitome of someone who is obviously not anti-Semitic,
Right.
and
Right.
get smeared.
And the state of Israel gladly works with all sorts of truly Jewish hating groups. They'll work with or ones that claim to be. They work with Saudi government. They work with literal Ukrainian Nazi military and paramilitary groups. So it's not to say that anti-Semitism isn't real. It is very real, and it's a scourge, and it's responsible for the death and torture of millions and millions of people in the last less than a century alone. But it's weaponized, and we can never ever ever really underestimate how craven and cynical politicians are willing to be. And so we can't take them with the word. Netanyahu and folks like him and his father, and so many of the Zionists, they talk about a Jewish state, like, and they couldn't be more secular. These people couldn't be more secular, but they try to weaponize or utilize as leverage different identities, religious identities, and religious traditions, even though they have no interest in it. So it's a real cynical manipulation of folks, and it's really sad because they don't do anything to it doesn't seem to me to actually fight actual anti-Semitism the same way American politicians who might be someone of color might talk about racism, but in reality they support the carceral system and policing, and they don't do anything to help racism against Mexicans or black people and things of that nature. Politicians are absolutely willing to sacrifice anything and stand for nothing and use identity in the most depraved ways.
Absolutely. And I think even going back to Fetterman and his disgusting stance on this, like you said, it is one thing to be like, I mean, I'm fucking done with electoral politics. People are still asking if they can come on to talk about their candidacy. I'm sorry, I love you. No, I'm not doing it. I haven't done it in almost a year. I'm not. And even if people were like, I just don't want Connor, I'm gonna vote for him, that whole thing, which I don't agree with, but whatever, it's your vote. That doesn't mean you have to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Like,
let's tell the truth about it, right?
More than one person can be garbage at the same time. How about that? So, you see people like, well, he's flawed, but I just donated. Why are you going out of your way? That's the thing. If you want to feel relieved it's not Connor, that's one thing. But to be like, I donated and I support him and stuff, you're supporting someone who disrespects Palestine, who praises Obamacare, who chased down an unarmed black man with a gun. Like, you are literally endorsing this person.
I'm with you personally. I mean, again, people can make their own decisions, but I think friends of Hillary Clinton, career politicians with the support of their state's Democratic Party, I think they have enough resources. They don't need mine. That's all. That's where I stand with that at this point.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's not an insurgent. Let's just be clear about that. He might have the affect or the aesthetic of being an outsider, but he's not. And as long as we can talk about that honestly, then we can talk about tactics, I guess. I still don't think that helps the most marginalized people in the world who get bombed regardless of who we vote for. But then we could talk about it. Let's at least be honest about who these people are. Let's not lionize them. Let's be adults about it. We don't need these people as heroes. We can be our own heroes, in my view. So I'm with you on that personally as well.
Well, that's one of the clips I want to play from my interview with Fetterman. I interviewed him the night before we voted. That's what's funny. Like, literally hours before we voted. And I had him sweating. He doesn't really like me very much, and that's okay. His wife is a Biden delegate, so, and I called him out for vote shaming. He vote shamed everyone who did not vote for Queen Hillary. And I called him out and said, well, I didn't, and one of the clips I want to play from our interview was how he said voting is the solution. Exactly what we're talking about. Also, I had to beg him to denounce fracking. I was like, but do you support it? But do you, in Pennsylvania, you guys got to understand, we literally call him Frackerman. That's what we call him. So, he talks about things, but we've had him for 2 years as lieutenant governor, and other people have had him for 4 years or 8 years as mayor. So we have receipts on who he is, and he's not, it's cool, guy with tattoos and working class, blah, blah, blah. His parents were rich, just so you know. He was not working class, okay?
See, this is the inside Pennsylvania scoop that I didn't have. It's good hearing much more about it.
It's ridiculous. Lived in a huge house, even though he was making no money as mayor. Okay, dude. Yep. Okay. Can you still stay with us, or do you need to go?
Yeah, no, I got a few more minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So let's play the first minute of this, and I'll tell you when to stop it. It's kind of in the middle of our fracking discussion. People are kind of 50-50, or people are not really, are thinking about not voting. If you could leave our audience with something to encourage them to go to the polls for you and be the deciding factor of them actually, picking your name tomorrow, what do you want to leave our viewers?
I would say that if I win the lieutenant governor's race, I will be the most progressive candidate ever elected to a statewide office here in Pennsylvania history. I think I have pretty strong bona fides in that department, and like I said, I was honored to share a stage with Bernie, and honored to have him say all these things, and I'm honored to have that, but I'm also honored by being a 4-term mayor of a marginalized community and working on these issues for the past 17 years before it was part of our mainstream conversation. And I'm proud to have stuck up for things, whether it's the racial inequality of our
bragging about his bona fides right now, as he says.
Look, voting matters. Every vote matters. Um, you know, it's, you know, we live in a cynical age, and it's like, you know, I don't ever want somebody to take that right for granted. And it's like, whether you vote for me or somebody else, just vote, participate. You know, it's like, look around, read your news, read your Twitter feed. You know, this is the world that we live in now because not enough people voted. You know, it's like, it has consequences, it has ramifications. We all need to participate and engage. And that's what I would just want for myself. And that's the kind of behavior that my wife and I are modeling for our 3 children, because they need to be informed voting members as well too.
So you heard it here, folks. Just vote.
That's the
all we
most.
need to do.
That's
Just
the most
vote.
establishment. He's literally saying, Look at Donald Trump. Now America's in trouble because Donald Trump's president, and that happened because people didn't vote.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't vote for president. We have an electoral college. That's the most like pedestrian, mainstream politician answer that anyone could possibly give. There's legitimate arguments for like voting and stuff, but he's just couldn't be bothered. It's, you know, it's like, I expected him to say basically like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black any second.
Yeah, right. No,
And
but
then
also it's like, he's so fucking fake, dude. And it's like, I don't care if who you vote for, just vote. I could give a whole compilation of times he has vote shamed anyone who did not vote for Hillary. He did it on my fucking show. So bullshit. Fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
But literally that's what he implied. Just vote. I'm teaching my kids, vote. But you're right. Where are you with fighting for open primaries? Where are you with banning electoral college, which was started as a fucking racist thing? Where are you with you know, previously incarcerated people being able to vote? Like, if you want votes, it should be everyone, no excuses, no runaround. In Pennsylvania, we have to register Dem a month in advance, you know, to vote for Bernie and shit. And then, you know, people get switched and not even know it. And, you know, all this shit. Like, if you really care about voting, you would fight to end all these fucking obstacles.
Right. Absolutely. And he has some gall talking about racial justice. I mean, like, it's not even 10 years ago. He decided to have vigilante justice. He saw a black man, assumed that black man had committed a crime, then said, I'm going to take a shotgun, pursue this person in a truck, kidnap him at gunpoint. I mean, what? This is a cartoon. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, and he's going to talk about, you know, I mean, that's a typical liberal, right? Like, everything's like, yeah, no, I like Martin Luther King Jr. and stuff, but God forbid I see a black man in my neighborhood, I'm going to assume that he's going to kill my 4-year-old son. So I'm going to form a one-man lynch mob. It's like, that's typical liberalism. It's like they're all for so many issues in the abstract, you know, but when it comes down to praxis, they're not in favor of liberation. If people set up on paper a questionnaire for candidate Fetterman, you know, do you support people going to another country, taking over the country, you know, occupying them, giving second-class citizenship or non-citizenship to people, like restricting their water use, you know, assassinating them, having, you know, like all these things that the Israel government does to Palestinians. If you did it in an abstract, you know, in the abstract or hypothetical, he'd say, no, I don't support, you know, illegal occupation of indigenous people's land in 2022. No, I don't support, you know, extrajudicial murders of children, unarmed children, and of press. No, I don't support withholding water from communities in order to discipline them. No, I don't support open air prisons of millions of people at once. Of course not. You know, all these things. Of course he wouldn't, you know, support those things because he's a nice guy who's in favor of racial justice and liberation and people's rights and human rights. But in practice, this is what he's promising to do. And that's what's scary, is like, he's never been in a position to like do much for Israel. but he's promising right now that if we put him in this position, he will continue to do what everyone does, what Donald Trump does, what Joe Biden does, what Barack Obama does, what everyone does. And we should believe people when they tell us who they are.
And that's why if he does like a town hall thing when he's going around between now and November, I will go and I will stand up and I will ask him, do you support Palestine? I will ask him, and I want to see what the fuck he says. Because I want to know straight yes or no. Do you? Because I have a feeling he'd be like, well, yeah, but Israel. No, I'm asking yes or no. Do you support Palestine?
Right.
Like he's scared of me, you guys. Like I'm not kidding you.
I
went up to him at this event in Harrisburg, and I was like, "Hi, Mr. Fetterman. Do you remember me?" And he goes, "I remember," and he walked away. So I hope he sees
when you're doing the right thing. When you get tweets from Hillary Clinton praising you alongside her friend Henry Kissinger, you're not doing the right things. When you get politicians walking away from you, you're doing the right things.
Yeah, seriously. I'm gonna bring like a sign with her tweet on it and be like, "What was that about being progressive?" Andrew, you've been quiet. What you got to say?
I mean, he looks like someone who I feel like his time would be better used being in like an action movie, like he has like some Die Hard movie, some Bourne, just I don't know. That'd be kind of cool.
Building the fracking pipes.
Yeah, frack builder. Don't mess with the frack builder.
Oh my God! If we don't laugh, we'll cry.
I think it's ironic too because I mean, I haven't been following his campaign as closely as both of you have in all of his issues, but isn't he for like tight gun regulations and gun control?
Yes.
And so for that, but then just chases people off his lawn with a gun.
I mean, there is an asterisk unless you're black.
Right, exactly.
But
just,
yes.
So. Yeah.
Oh my God.
What a guy.
You ruled the world.
I mean, I will say, I will admit, him winning, it was very reactionary, kind of what you were saying, Elias, when it was like, not just even Connor Lamb, but some of the people supporting Connor Lamb were so obnoxious where I was like,
AOC,
at least they shut up.
She donated to him? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, like AOC. But even just some of the people on Twitter. But then, I mean, obviously that's reactionary because when you learn more about him, it's like, this wasn't a progressive victory. It maybe shut up some obnoxious people, but what good does that actually do for people?
Yeah. We can do both things, right? We can be happy that Connor Lamb lost and still be critical of the guy who beat him. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We cannot, I've told candidates that, even if you're a candidate, you still won't support everything you say. You cannot support someone unequivocally. You can't. That is a hero. That is not a candidate. It is okay to hold these people accountable. If you don't do that and you do the vote blue no matter who, things like that, they're not going to do shit because they know they have your vote regardless. So now is the point when we have leverage. If you want my vote, here is what you're going to do. XYZ. If you don't do this, you don't get my vote. It's that simple. So unless you use that leverage, don't be surprised when not a damn thing changes. What was that, Andrew?
Oh, no, nothing. I'm just nodding.
I thought you were like this. I was like, I'm usually the one that does that.
Sure, a little.
Well, I know you've got to go, comrade, but please tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your Substack, all that fun stuff.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. So I'm on Twitter at Elias Cepeda, Elias Cepeda. The Substack, the Deconstructing Consent Substack is eliascepeda.substack.com.
And don't hold the blue check against him. He's actually a really good person.
One of the few blue checks that doesn't like tweet something cringe and out of touch.
Yeah, but you were saying that you just got it, like when you signed up. You got it, like back in the day, they would just like give them to people. Like it wasn't like this big thing.
Yeah, I had it. I was at the time when I got it, I was working, I was writing for foxsports.com, and then I had it one time. Like I gladly traded in for many more followers. It's fine. Like I didn't like write it. I don't know who to contact. I don't know who to like Mr. Bluebird, who to have written to, but yeah, I got it one time, and yeah, so it's
just
for better or for
really
worse.
Bad, they'll remove it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've gotten, if it helps, I have gotten suspended from Twitter. If that helps my streak.
Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh yeah, that's what's up.
It's happened.
Thank you so much for joining us. Much love.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much, Troy. I appreciate you both.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Don't forget to sub. We love us some Elias. He's the best. So thank you guys so much for watching that. It felt so good to finally get some shit out about fucking Fetterman. Oh my God, you guys. Andrew, can you put the full link to my interview in the comments? If you guys want to watch it, it's like a 45-minute interview I did with Fetterman. It's got some real cringe moments. And I would love if I could learn how to like make clips of things, because wow. But I mean, here's the thing. He's already the nominee. You know, the time to come out and really show things against them are when they're competing against someone else in their party. And I don't want him to beat Connor, but I don't want him either. So
yeah, sounds like it wasn't. It sounds like the candidates were not very good in that race.
You're literally exchanging shit candidates. Like, to me, what the fuck do I care if they're both shit? The only thing Fetterman would possibly do would be legalize cannabis, but he's been saying that for over a decade and he's never done anything. So, and the thing is, our governor, who he is BFFs with as the lieutenant governor, and he always sides with 100% of the time, is awful in a lot of ways, like just legit awful. And here's a funny story. Our governor is the one that was endorsing Biden when Biden sharded it live on TV. Our governor was endorsing him as he sharded. So that's what I think of when I think of our governor. It sums it up perfectly.
It's very poetic. Yeah.
It is. It really is. So what is our next topic?
I don't know. What should our next topic be? So we could talk a little bit about the formula shortage, because I think there's one part of the formula shortage that hasn't really been talked about too much.
It
right?
hasn't. Yet again, that's why I love doing this show, because we find things that nobody else is talking about. I did not even know this until you brought it to my attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So just gonna bring this up real quick. And so, we talk about the shortage, and there's been a lot going on here, right? We had Pete Buttigieg say, the government can't make any baby formula because this is the free market, right?
And he has 2 infant kids, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So Great father. And I think wrapped into it, we need to talk about how, so this is local source talking about how they found that I believe 90%, according to data compiled by Ally Market Research, 4 companies control about 90% of the U.S. infant formula industry. Abbott Nutrition, which is the one that they had to recall, right? Mead Johnson Nutrition, Nestle USA, Perio Company.
Nestle.
I'm sorry?
Isn't it Nestle?
Yeah, Nestle. Sorry. Nestle USA, Perio Company. And Fulham said he doesn't anticipate many smaller companies breaking the industry anytime soon, right? It costs a lot of money to get into this business, and you're going to think twice before stepping in and trying to be one of those competitors, right? So, I mean, I think everything goes back to the fact that regulations are so loose that we've allowed these companies to have such a monopoly on the market so that if any of these 4 companies go to shit like they just did, there's insufficient amount of things available for people, right? And so when we talk about the baby formula shortage, there's a couple of factors at play here. First of all, the Biden administration fucked up, right? They either were negligent or they didn't care, or they were both, right? Well, negligent and didn't care is basically the same thing, right? Clueless, negligent, whatever, because back in October, there was a whistleblower for that company saying they are not being safe, right? And then several months later, they actually inspected their facility, saw that there were things. This is like in January now. And then a month later, they decided to close it. Mind you, even before the whistleblower came out, there were like 3 babies that mysteriously died, right? And so this is a perfect example of how the government is always in bed with these corporations. They fail to regulate, right? And I don't know exactly what the motivations and intentions of the Biden administration was, but it is very, I mean, to me, Joy, it reeks a lot of corruption. The fact that back in October, you have a whistleblower gave very specific facts of the things they were doing wrong. The whistleblower ended up getting fired for complaining about the things that were happening, right? And here we are. And I think for me, I just hope that this is something that will hopefully radicalize, particularly a lot of mothers, not a new mothers, who can't feed their children formula, right? Because this is exactly how monopolies affect everyday people. And so, yeah, Joy, I don't know what you have to say.
You know, I forget who said it. Someone on Twitter, some actor said, we'll just use breast milk kind of thing. And the thing that people need to understand, I was watching a doctor speak about this, a pediatrician, and there are 2 things people need to understand. Number 1, the babies are still new and their bodies are still forming. So they are getting, it's not addicted to, but their bodies are processing these certain ingredients. And when they are all of a sudden removed and they do not get those, it can lead to being sick. And that's why babies are ending up in the hospital with stomach problems, things like that. So, yes, for a bajillion years, we all survived on breast milk. That's what we did. There was no formula. I get that. But there are babies with certain diseases and certain issues from their stomachs and such, which need formula because they have those certain vitamins and nutritional benefits to that. So I was listening to this doctor explain those, and it really made sense to me because, you know, I'm not a mom. I don't know, you know, and I'm 43. I'm not going to be one, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, so there are reasons medically that this was a big deal than some bigger deal than some people are trying to, act like it wasn't. But, as mothers, this was causing their babies, a number of issues, and the amount of babies being hospitalized from this, lack of a better term, withdrawal, it's scary. It's not just a handful. Like, so imagine, like, when you have a newborn, you don't think like, I'm going to start them on this and maybe one day I'll just not be able to get it anymore. Like, that's not something you think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think Pete Buttigieg, when he said it's the free market, and then he said, we might need to look at the fact, though, that there's only 4. And I think in the same interview, he said, we might need to look into the fact like 4 companies have 90% of the market in baby formula. Huh. Okay. Well, who's going to look into that, Pete?
Yeah.
So
you just adopted 2 infants. You posted a picture of you and your husband holding 2 infant babies the same day. You just fucking said that, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, and that's another good point to make too. When it's like, when same-sex couples are more and more starting to adopt and have children, right? Like, they're most likely going to need formula because.
Well, yeah, because they don't really have breaths with
right,
milk.
Right. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, they may. I don't fucking know.
Exactly, Commie John. My thoughts. How is Pete going to produce milk? Right.
Exactly, Commie. Like, oh my God. Why didn't I even think of that? Yeah, that's a good point. He probably has, like, fucking maids and stuff. And he's like, okay, today I need this. Rub my feet, give me breast milk. Like, yeah.
Start pumping.
With that?
Start pumping. Let's go. Take a pump break. Oh, God.
Oh, my God. I can't. How do you even know what the fucking pump is, Andrew? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. You're killing me. What other things do we have?
Yeah. So another thing that we have that I think is really so this
what other
is
things do we have? Like, that's the technical term. What other things?
What other stuff do we have going on? So, you know how the Senate, well, besides one person, voted $48 billion in aid to Ukraine. Well, one other bill that was happening at around the same time that didn't make it was that the Senate, and let me just make sure this is pulled up because it's not, the Senate managed to block $48 billion in aid package for restaurants and other small businesses, right? So if that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the priorities of the Senate, the House of Representatives, well, the Senate in this case, the Congress, I don't know what does, right? So on Thursday, the Senate blocked a bipartisan bill to provide $48 billion to restaurants, gyms, and other small businesses hit particularly hard by the pandemic. It was a 52-43 to hold a vote on the bill, falling short of the 60-vote threshold needed to move forward. Just 5 GOP senators voted for the motion to proceed with the bill's opponents, citing its impact on the federal deficit and inflation. So Roger Wicker,
non-existent deficit, correct?
Exactly. So, and then
this happened right after. I don't know if you guys noticed this because it did kind of go a bit under the radar last week. Biden literally said he's reaching out to states to collect their unused COVID money to give to fucking Ukraine. Okay, how about a fucking stimulus, you idiot? Trump gave us more than you did.
Or in this case, the businesses that, like the small businesses that have struggled because they were out of business for all this time. Like literally, there's like 10 different things you could have done at least better than how he spent that money. And, I think this is interesting because, there were a lot more Democrats that voted yes for it than Republicans. And so in some way, Republicans were consistent with the deficit, I guess their deficit, right? Where Democrats, some at least did vote for it. However, the fact that this is under the radar, I mean, the Democrats are not going to, like, this actually, in some ways, when you look at it, the Republicans almost gave a layup to the Democrats to be like, to say to the Republicans that they're anti-small business, right? But this is so under the radar. I don't think any of the Democrats are actually talking about this. So this is just gonna, go under the sheets and not be talked about. But like that would actually be really smart for Dems who are struggling with their ratings because people know they're not doing shit, to then use that and be like, hey, you say you're for small businesses. Why did you not give them that money? Right. But they're not going to do that because they don't actually care about winning. But
nope.
That's how I kind of saw this, where it was like, okay.
So crazy. Absolutely insane. And something I was thinking about the other day is, how like, well, I know how I was before I became like so-called radicalized. I used to be so disgusted with Republicans who would be like, spend the money on us. Why are you giving it to other countries? Right. Give us the money. We need things here. And I used to be like, oh my God, you're so disgusting. Like, we're helping people who need it way worse than we do. And now that I've like actually learned, I'm like, okay, well, what they were saying was correct for very different reasons. But yes, I mean, what the fuck? Why are we spending all this money killing other people instead of helping ourselves? That makes no sense. And the only sense you can make of that is that we are fucking warmongers who are totally cool with perpetuating eugenics of the poor, and we're, like, oh wow, like we want to be the heroes. We want to, yay, Ukraine. Nazis? What Nazis? Fuck you. No, Ukraine. Yay, Ukraine. Somalia? What about Somalia? No, Ukraine. Blonde hair, blue eyes. The Ukraine, you guys, Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that's all we're gonna hear about.
Yeah. And I mean, before anybody tries to say, well, some of the money goes to the refugees. Yeah, 900 million out of the 40 billion went to refugees, right? People who were in need, who got displaced, right?
What about the refugees of Russia? What about the people who do not support Putin, which there's way more than a handful of people? What do? They want to flee too. But we are so xenophobic against Russians that we don't think about that. We're just, yay, Ukraine all the way. I stand with Ukraine. What about I stand with humanity? What about I stand with all the Russian and Ukraine families who are both having to flee and take their kids and run to hide because they don't support a war regardless where they live? That should be our stance.
Yeah.
Not one or the other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, should we talk about Amy? Good old Amy.
Oh my God, Amy Klobuchar. I love her. I love her. I love her. Like, my hair, I was in a blizzard. Okay. Wait for it. Yeah. Amy, my girl.
It's funny going from Pete to Amy because it just reminds me of the debate tips that they had during the primaries, which was so fun to watch because it was just such a competition between who was more unlikable, and it was just like, I don't know who to root in this. I'm just happy that they're both just like tearing each other apart right now. Like this
I
is
just
fun.
like how she always sounds like she's gonna cry, and she'd be like, "Oh,
sorry, we can't all be perfect like you, Pete."
yes, I threw a stapler. Yes, I ate with a comb. Yes, I threw a binder. But
No, I don't know the name of the president of Mexico.
I did give a speech in a blizzard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
what's going on, girlfriend?
so Amy, who, mind you, okay, remember how like with Derek Chauvin, it came out what the hell he did to George Floyd, right? She was like in line to be Biden's VP until it came out that she failed to prosecute Chauvin on several different accounts, leading him to do this.
Did.
So just remember that every time she praises cops, because I think that just brings a whole other sinister meaning to that. 576 officers lost their lives in the line of duty in 2021. We passed a Senate resolution designating this week as National Police Week to honor the officers who put their lives on the line every day to protect their communities, one small way to recognize their courage. And so, yeah, and then someone responds with an insider. And I think they actually ratioed her 16.1K to her 3,452 likes. Yeah, so this is what makes you feel a little better. This comment right here. So posted insider. At least 1,124 people were killed by police in 2021, according to an online database, and there were only 15 days last year when police didn't kill anyone. So that's according to insider right there.
Wow.
But I think one of the things, and I can't find it now, but someone actually broke those numbers down, and 400, I think it was around 430 of those officers who died of COVID, right? So
shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like I wish I could find it because that was like when you showed that, I was like, oh, there was some statistic that someone brought like that actually broke down why they all.
Oh my god.
But, yeah, so that's
can't.
just yeah. I'm gonna try and find that, but yeah. So
like I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I was like 500. That's all, and I don't mean that like. Because fuck cops. I mean, fuck cops, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, I mean, how many innocent black people have been murdered this year? I mean, 500 didn't sound like a whole lot to me. And I'm not saying all those people deserve to die or anything, or like, it's not a loss for their families and stuff. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to make an entire week to celebrate them, and there's 500 people, like maybe
yeah.
we should have a week to celebrate some of the people we killed in war.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the black people we, tortured and beat the shit out of and murdered.
Right.
People who actually should be honored.
So all right, I'm trying to look at the source of this just so I'm 100% clear that this is legit, but it looks like odmp.org brought up the statistics here. And I know it's hard to see when you're watching, so I'll just read some of it. Total line of duty deaths, 623 in 2021. And so 444 were COVID-19, 24 were automobile crash, 62 was gunfire, 22 heart attack, 14 struck by vehicle, not 12 9/11 related illnesses. So yeah, I mean, just to
so what did you say? 22 were gone.
Gunfire was 62. So 62 to 4, out of 623.
Well, why are the numbers different? Like, where did she even get her number? Because these are,
That's true. Yeah. Because how many did she say? She said
five something.
Yeah.
562, I think.
But either way, I mean, I think what this does do is this is consistent with the narrative where it's like, if you actually go back from, and I saw the statistic recently, where it's like, if you go back from like the 70s or 60s to today, I believe like cops actually getting shot have like decreased by like 70% or something like that, right? Like the propaganda really likes to make it sound like cops are victims more often than they are, right? And then they use additional funding because, to feed the complex of it. But yeah.
Please send me that screenshot. That's fascinating.
It is. So it's some org, so it looks legit. Again, it's hard to see exactly where it was coming
Well,
from.
to me, it's feasible because she didn't say how they died. She said they've died. So, I mean, that's a good
right.
point. Like, how did they die?
It was extremely misleading. Yeah. Yeah. So, what else is new? Democrats are now just, praising cops just like the Republicans and making them out to be victims in every which way, whereas the person below said, like, literally, like, there were 15 days of the year in 2021 where a cop didn't shoot someone. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And speaking of cops, and you guys know I've talked about this before because I cannot stand Stacey Abrams, and when she trends, it infuriates me for many reasons. Mr. George Soros, person who takes
Joy, I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. Just keep going.
What's that?
I'll be right back. Just keep talking. I'll be right back.
So let's not forget the two main things. I could tell you many things about her, but the two main things about Stacey Abrams people always like to forget when they praise her. Number one, she worked for Neera Tanden for CAP. That's number one. Number two, she worked for Mike Bloomberg's presidential campaign and took over $1 million from him. Mike Bloomberg, who is a racist, a sexual harasser, a person who literally used prisons to make his phone calls to his constituents. Mike Bloomberg, who is the biggest pro-cop person like ever. So yeah, when I see her trending and I see, like, first of all, she's never held office. Why do people want her to be president so bad? Like, Trump's first time he held office was president. No, I'm not comparing her to Trump. I'm saying when you have someone go into the highest office in the land and they've had no political experience whatsoever, why the fuck would you do that? She has no experience. The other thing is, I don't know if you guys remember, but when she did a response to the State of the Union after Trump, it was all written beforehand. It was nothing but platitudes. It was boring as fuck. I mean, just boring. It was written before. It had nothing to do with it at all.
To be fair, though, don't they usually let the person responding see the speech beforehand so that they can then create their own?
No.
It's just on the cuff they do that?
It's on the cuff because Bernie always responds every year. He's done it for years. And
but the actual person that does it. Like, Bernie was not the actual.
No. But I'm getting to that.
Oh,
Bernie does it, but he does it an hour after it ends because he writes his thoughts after he hears what they say. There is no, besides, Trump doesn't read. He says stuff. I don't know what she could have possibly read beforehand. Like it was Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, the speech that Pelosi had in her hand that she so famously rips apart at the end. So, and that's
Yes, Queen.
Yeah. So.
All right, Boo. Well,
All
what
right.
you got going on?
Yeah. So tomorrow I'll actually be on JB's channel tomorrow at 2. So catch me on there. And then we catch me on the People's Voice as well. Wednesday we got a panel. And so definitely catch us for that. And damn, what's the guest name? I'm terrible. You say your thing, and then I'll make sure I say who the guest is for the
So, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on Sabby Sab's show.
Nice.
I always like going on there, so that'll be fun. So that's Wednesday at 7. I'm gonna do a few like impromptu shows this week. I know I've been like, so busy with work now that I'm working and everything. So I'm kind of slacking with shows, but I'm gonna start doing them again this week. So that also, I am working on a new article that I hope to publish this week. Also, July 30th, DC, March for Medicare for All. Please, if you are in DC, if you are willing to travel to DC and you are disabled, you work in healthcare, you have medical bills, you lost your job and lost your insurance, you have no insurance, you're underinsured, you ration your prescriptions, anything like that, please reach out to me. I want to hear your story. And if we discuss it and it's cool, then perhaps we'll have you speak at the event. But we are looking for people who are affected by our violent healthcare system, sick care system. So not just people who are like well known or anything. We want to hear from victims. We want to hear from those who are suffering at the hands of this predatory system. So please give me a call. Give me a shout out on Twitter. My DMs are open. Also, mforall.org. We are taking donations. We desperately need them. We found out that it's $7,000 just to rent porta pots. So between that and the sound system and like I'm not even adding it up in my head because I'll freaking cry in the fetal position. So if you can, please, even if it's a few bucks, please send it our way. It goes directly towards the march. We are 100% volunteer. None of us get paid or anything. We donate all of our time and effort. So we can only do what we can do because we have supporters. We also have some great events coming up. I'll be announcing some on Sabby's show just to kind of promote the march and try to fundraise. But go to mforall.org. And like I said, if you can, please help us out.
Yeah. So Wednesday at 8 p.m., People's Voice Network will have author-director Joel Bacon to discuss documentary recently that he created.
What's the documentary on?
It's on like what Twitter doesn't want you to see, and it's like the new corporation movie. Looks like. So it's not a topic I particularly know too much about, but I look forward to learning about it as well, along with hopefully some of you who will be watching Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, People's Voice Network. Yeah.
Also, we'll smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. I don't understand why I'm at like 2,300 followers on Rockfin and like 800 on YouTube, but smash that subscribe button, people. And to my oh my God, what's it called? What's my article place called? Substack.
Substack, yeah.
Also, thank you to our buddy Elias who came and represented. I always love him so much. And also, I want to say thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. Like, you guys, it was incredible. It was so nice, and I love you guys so much. So thank you. I appreciate it, and much love. Thank you all so much for watching, and tune in Sabby Sab Saturday or Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and tune into Andrews as well. Much love, guys. Thanks for watching.